everyone. Tonight's Emmaus Road Talk is a little different. I've chosen to go to my friend John Hoyles, and John is the Executive Director of Eastern Ontario for 211 Ontario, and he's going to tell us all about that, and we're going to talk about that. And I think this is such a valuable information to have that I want all of you to have this, and because we don't hear much of this in Ontario about 211 Ontario. So John, you and I go back a long way. We were just reminiscing there, almost 35 years, way back to that little place called New Liskeard in Northern Ontario. And when I met you, I boldly phoned you on the phone and set up an interview with you, and I was surprised you took it. And we've got to be friends. Thank you, John. So thank you for doing this with me today. So tell me, John, can you give me an overview description of 211 Ontario? What's this all about?
Well, I'll tell you very simply in one line and then give you a little more information, Peter. But first of all, thank you for having me. And it's great to be able to see you today, even though we can't meet in person. 211 is the place to call when you don't know where to turn. And simply put, it's interesting. Studies show that people will take on average 7 calls to find the human service, the social service, the health service that they need. Instead of doing that, you simply call 211. And what we do is we have a database across the province of over 60,000 services that are available. Anything from food banks to walk-in clinics to legal aid clinics. And so what we do is when you call, we have a conversation. We are not a call center. Some people say, well, you just give out phone numbers. No, we do much more than that. And what we do is we work with the individual to find out exactly what the issue is. And then we connect them to the service that they need. And awesome. So 211 is not been well known. You referenced at the beginning. And that is because there's never been much money to do any kind of awareness or what you would call in the commercial side marketing. But we're getting a little bit more, and the federal government, since COVID, has invested money in 211. So we're going to have more resources and more people will find it. I can tell you, Peter, I've been running this in Eastern Ontario for 3.5 years, and I didn't know what when I was asked to consider taking this job. I said, "What the devil is 211?" And I didn't know, and then I found out about it, and I said, I want this job because we help people every day. And I can tell you my goal in Eastern Ontario is to make sure by the time I leave this job that everybody in Eastern Ontario, and I hope across the province, thinks of 211 as quickly as they think of 911 for emergencies. So really what it is, it's the number to call when you're looking for non-emergency services and you can't figure out where to go. I don't care if you're sophisticated, unsophisticated. The system is really confusing. It's a maze. And what we do is we help people quickly get through the maze.
So you're not a government agency then, John?
No.
So 211 Ontario is, what would you refer to yourselves as?
Well, it's there's a 211 or provincial board that's just oversight. And then there are 6 organizations across the province that regionally provide the 211 service, and we are all not-for-profits, and we get the funding for the whole operation comes from the Ministry of Community, Children and Social Services. About 80% of our funding comes from them, 20% comes from United Way. Local cities give us money, Kingston, for example, in the East Ottawa, and the same thing happens across the province. So it's publicly funded and it's free.
Yes.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
24/7. Okay.
365.
Okay.
And so it's available. If you're 10 o'clock at night, you're really stressed out about something, where you're looking for a service, you want to find something the next day, you call and somebody will answer that call, and it is a human being. There's a voicemail at the beginning. Do you want French or English? And then right away you're actually going to talk to a live person who is going to listen to you, which is a huge advantage.
What if you don't speak French or English?
You can call us in 150 languages.
So what happens if it's asking for a choice? So when you call in and that's not your, do you just start talking and they pick it up?
No. What you do is you should just, and I think in the area that in around Hamilton and so on, you just talk in English. And what happens is somebody can say, they usually can say enough to say Farsi, for example, or
Yes.
Polish, whatever it might be.
Yes.
Then what happens, and I was very doubtful. I said, how do you do this? And there's a company called Language Line, and we pay them per usage. And what happens is I get a call, somebody, I'm on the line who says, 211, how can I help you today? And the person says Farsi and might know a few words in English. And I said, okay, just a minute, please. And in about then I dial a number, and within 120 seconds, I have a Farsi interpreter on the line live.
Wow.
And so then, and we got, you name it, 150 languages that these people are available. And then what happens is the person speaks in their language to the interpreter. The interpreter then translates to my, if I'm taking the call, I then give the answer and the information goes back. And I can tell you, Peter, I was at a meeting of a local organization that works with vulnerable people, and one of the members of the board was there, and he's a Canadian, been a Canadian for, new Canadian for about 5 years. He's from Somalia. And he said, John, he said, I tell in my community, just call 211 if you're looking for a service because you can't speak English, because they'll get an interpreter that speaks Somalian to do the thing. So we use it all the time. So
It's
it's
awesome.
pretty impressive, actually. I actually tried it out when I first got in the job. I said, really? So I had a friend who was Ukrainian. I got them to call just to see how it worked, but it does work very well. And again, 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Well, being all the nations that are here today, John, and in Canada and Ontario especially, that's an incredible service to offer, I
Yeah,
think, because
yeah.
the most difficult thing is not knowing where to go with an issue that you have, because it sounds like it can almost be any issue, and you can call 211 and they'll do their best to direct you in the right direction. Now, let's say it's an issue that goes on more than the one call, and there has to be a callback. Is there follow-up that happens, John?
What there's several things. Are the people that take the calls, what they're trained to do is we look for people that are empathetic, that have very good listening skills, can ask questions in a way that people don't feel that they're too intrusive. Because so many times when somebody calls, as you mentioned a minute ago, with an issue, when you start asking them the questions, the issue they think they have, and you would know this from your work in the church, Peter, is not the issue that they really have.
Mm.
And so we listen. And if, in fact, it's during the hours that the agency that we think they need to be connected to is open, we will do what we call a warm transfer. And we will advocate. If we think the person's going to have a hard time after we could talk to them for 10, 15 minutes, say, well, look, they're going to have a little bit of trouble sort of advocating for themselves. So we get on the line with a three-way call ourselves, the person is looking for the help, and the agency, and we will tell the agency what the problem is and get the person connected right to where they need to be connected. So we do
Okay.
that. The other thing we do is some people think, yeah, I think they've got it, but we're not sure. So what they'll do is they'll say, the person on the phone will say, sir, madam, you've got the number to call the agency. I've given you what they can do for you. Do you mind if I call you back 24 hours from now to see how you're doing?
Follow-up.
A
Wow.
follow-up call,
Oh, wow.
okay? And then we'll check in. And it's really important for several reasons, Peter. The more information we can have, we keep track of all the needs referrals we make, what the need was. But more importantly, we keep track of unmet needs. And we share that with local agencies, United Ways, ministry, to say, look, there's a gap. We have we can just see the trend. When we had 20 people in the last 2 weeks that were looking for this, and there's nothing there for them. I mean, I had a presentation to senior citizens earlier this week, and one of the issues that came up was eligibility. And when we have a list of reasons why people can't get the help, and a lot of times ineligible for the service. So you think of the LEAP program, which is hydro. If you can't afford your hydro, they have a program to help you if you're a vulnerable person, low income. But if you don't meet the threshold and your income's not low enough, you can't. But the person's still struggling right now. With COVID, these calls for helping with hydro, all our calls are up 30% since last March. The problem is that sometimes these thresholds are too low, and they need to be higher in terms of income to help people. But we will look all over the place for answers. I'll give you an example. Housing is a big issue across this province,
Is
and
it ever?
I
Yeah.
think it's unfortunately in a very well-to-do country. It is, but it shouldn't be, but it is. And so we had a caller a gentleman with 2 young children, single father, who had been, for whatever reason, pushed out of his apartment, and he called us on a Friday afternoon, and he said, I have nowhere to go. I have my 2 young children, and so one of our rules. So we call the shelters in Ottawa, and everybody's full. But the gentleman has nowhere to go with 2 young children. So we have a few things, and you'll know this from your work in the church as well. There's a couple of organizations that tell us, look, if it's a real emergency, we have a little bit of money that we have for that kind of thing. So we called one of those folks, and they called Algonquin College, which is a community college here in Ottawa, and it was in the summer. And so he got 4 nights paid at the residence to give him 4 days to figure, which end was up. So we will look for all kinds of creative solutions.
Great.
Sometimes our database doesn't have the answer. We'll start Googling to look if we have to, because my staff, they're paid very poorly. That's just in the nature of the business. What I found out when I got here, they're here because they believe in what they're doing. So their goal is to really want to get you help. And I can tell you right now, my big concern during COVID is their mental health, because a lot of times now there isn't a solution. And of course they don't like it when they can't connect them to the help that they want, right? And so it's very frustrating, and it can be mentally, wearing. So
now the terminology that in reading some of the material from you, John, was they're called community navigators. Is that right?
Yeah.
That fits. That sounds so appropriate when I saw that. They're navigating the community on someone's behalf and
Correct.
how to get through, eh? And because that's the hard thing when you don't know, when you don't understand, or you have communication issues either with language or whatever it is. Having been an immigrant family, I realize the challenges without even being able to speak English. You don't even know where to go. Sometimes I think that I don't know what questions to ask sometimes when I have an issue, even, going, when you have someone else advocating, navigating for you, they can see, as you described earlier, how you don't even realize what the real problem is.
Right. And it's interesting, they were called for many years information and referral specialists. Now that was what I would call inside baseball name, right? If you know the rules. And so we, in the last 2 years, we changed it to Community Navigator, and we had a funny name here in Ottawa, which we just changed last fall to Community Navigation of Eastern Ontario, because I wanted, when somebody saw that, well, that's what you do community navigation. And for my staff, they tell me when they go out there to their friends that I'm a community navigator. That people understand that right away. When you say you're an information referral specialist, what's that? So it's a great thing, and that's what we do. And the reality is that going back to the point about people not maybe quite sure what they think their issue is, the other thing we often end up with, Peter, is multiple referrals. So somebody calls us and they say they can't pay their hydro. So then when they have a conversation, we're just not check them off. We say, okay, so are you how are you doing with food? He said, well, it's going to be tough, to make it to the next check. We're not going to have enough food, and I'm 2 months behind in my rent. So we'll end up referring them to the food bank to help with the hydro bill, and we may send them to a legal aid clinic if they think they're going to have a problem with their landlord. So there's 3 things that they end up dealing with. But the real thing we're trying to do, Peter, is to empower people and give them confidence in themselves by getting them started, calling back if we need to. But here, yes, you can take control of this. Here's how: if you call this agency, give them building their sense of confidence and building their sense of resilience is really what ultimately we like to do. It would be great one day if 201 didn't have to exist. But I'm unfortunately, the way government is, it's always going to be complicated. So I think we're around for a while. But that's the thing, is we're really here to help vulnerable people gain confidence in their own abilities to handle these things. But meanwhile, we're there, and we will do the follow-up calls. But we also say, at the close of our calls, we always say, if you have any other things you can't figure out, just call 211.
And it's not just vulnerable people. It could be
anybody.
People who just don't know where to go, what government agency to get to, or if even something is available for them, or they're having difficulty navigating it, to, like, even seniors, even though they're they're just having a hard time. I think of this internet age, everything's so internet, and they expect you to do everything internet. Like the other day I needed blood work. Well, the only way I could get blood work is to do it, set it up on internet. And I'm thinking, and how many of the elderly can do that? You know what I mean? And I was able to do it, but I feel for them.
But
And
Peter, that's why we're talking to the ministry, and they're saying, well, we want to. The government wants to go digital. Everything's digital, and the selling point for our service is it's a human being that's going to listen to you. And you talked about seniors. The real issue there, we see more and more calls of people that are alone. And guess what? It doesn't matter whether they, have $10 in the bank or they're a millionaire. If you're a senior, your spouse has passed away, you're by yourself, you're lonely.
Mhm.
Okay, you're vulnerable. I don't care, what your income bracket is, but you're vulnerable. And they can call us, and there's organizations across the province, things called like the Friendly Voice, where they have volunteer seniors that will call people and chat with them and just keep them company. And that's why, as you said at the beginning, the range of things that we can connect you to is pretty wide.
Now, I need to interject there. You see, a lot of the things you're talking about is actually the work of the church.
True enough. True enough.
That is in my world, that's what we're trying to do, connect with our people, keep, is there everything okay? Do you need help? It's really the work that I think the Lord expects human beings to do for one another and help one another, and the work of the church. So
And Peter, we have to somehow get that back more. I working we work with emergency planning for communities as well, because we'll help them to take calls if there's a flood, and they can call us and we'll tell them where the sandbags are and where water is. But talking with one expert, he said, John, things have changed so much. He said to me, John, do you know your neighbor 3 doors down the street in where you live in Ottawa?
mhm.
I said, I know two doors
And
down,
you've
but not
lived there a
three.
long time.
I've
And
lived
you've
there
lived
30
there a
years,
long time.
30 years. And the point is now people come home, they drive into their garage open their automatic door, go and walk in, and they don't talk. So, say I had a kitchen fire. This is the example. You have a kitchen fire. So 20 years ago, your next door neighbor said, John, come in and bunk with us till they get the smoke cleared out and they get things figured out. Now there's nobody.
Yeah.
And that to me is what's happened with people not understanding what the role of a church, what the role of your little community is,
Community.
is community, and so now people are even more isolated, which again means more calls to 211, because people aren't going to go to their neighbor. But I tell everybody about 211, Peter, because my view is it's not, you said it, it's not just it's for anybody, any citizen. And I
Anybody.
say to my friends, and they said, John, I'll never use 211. I said, yeah, but your couple, the senior couple that lives next door to you, they may say, I'm trying to find it. You can say, oh, look, call 211. I just want you to know about it, so you may be able to share it with somebody else. And that's the really important thing.
But it is more than a phone call as well.
Right.
I understand that, and the world is moving digitally, so you
Yeah.
can online go to 211 as well. Does that
Yes.
work a little different? I like that. I like the phone call better. I like to communicate with
Yeah.
someone and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
personal touch, but sometimes just for information for some of us. So how does the online portal work there,
So
John?
that you can go to 211 ontario.ca, and you can actually access a lot of this information right on there. They're revamping it. It's not quite as intuitive it should be for the search part of it. So it's not, that's what's there now, but it's gonna get changed very soon. But the other thing you can do is you can email. You can send an email and we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Uh, we have chat because we're trying to reach all generations, and
Hmm.
the chat has taken off. And we're going, we hope to launch every February 11th, second month, 11th day is 211 day. So we were hoping
Okay.
to launch text across Ontario on that day, but there was some technology, as there always is, as you'll know, Peter. There's always bumps in the road when you're bringing in a new kind of technology. It's not a new technology, but new for us. So the rest of it is that's coming, because we want we're the front door for people to find the service that they need, and whether they want to use the call or the text or the chat or the email or just go online and look, we want to make sure that they get connected. I can tell you a story, Peter, just a very brief story. We had a number of months ago a young woman, I suspect she was maybe 16 or 17, who started a chat with us from the children's section of a public library in a major city here in Eastern Ontario. And the reason is that she'd run away from home because she had a fight with her parent. And she got picked up by a young guy who then human trafficked her, and she wanted to get away. But he had told her, "Don't you try to get away, because I will kill you. I will kill your parents." And so she went into the library, went into the children's section, started chatting with us, and we were able to chat back. And we actually had two people chatting to keep the chat going, two of our staff. And ultimately, somebody from children's care, children's aid came. She agreed that they could come, and the police came, and we got her out of that situation. Doing that, to me, makes all that we do worth it, just in that one thing that we're able to do. So that's why she was comfortable with chat. She didn't want to talk on the phone.
Well, because that's the age group. That's where they're at.
That's exactly. Yeah. So we have to, we have to keep up with the times, as they say, Peter. You and I both. You're much better on this technology stuff than I am, Peter.
I don't know, John. I don't know. But John, just in wrapping it up, I want to say, that's a really big challenge you guys are trying to face, because I'm going to ask, how do you keep your database up to date? Because everything is changing all the time. That must be a challenge in itself, John.
Well, we have, as I said, we have the community navigators. We also have what we call data curators, and like a museum curator. We look after all this stuff, and we also have standards. I just wanted to make sure I'd forgotten this point earlier. We are required to be accredited, and there's an organization across North America called the Alliance of Information Referral Systems, and they're like a hospital accreditation where someone comes and says, you keep to all the standards in the hospital, and it's very rigorous. And each of our staff, when they're hired either to work on data or as a community navigator, within a year must get their certification. And there's a written test, and it isn't easy. But the data curators, they're people, again, you hire for different skill set. Meticulous, don't mind being sort of prissy about things because you want them to be that way. And we are required to keep 85% of our records updated annually. Because you're absolutely right. It is the engine that drives what we do.
Yeah, if your data is no good, then you can't offer that.
And I can tell you how COVID did to us is we were swamped, because all the other things are being shut down because they were closed, some of the social services. Then they opened again, and it keeps going on. So that's what they do. And they, by keeping to that 85%, because if somebody calls, it's what our community navigators use. They go into the database and say, okay, looking for a food bank, in downtown Ottawa. And so we go in and we have, there's a phone number, and here's the hours. Now, if those hours have changed, or they happen to have moved the food bank and we don't have it, we're going to send somebody, we're going to give them wrong information.
Wild goose chase.
So it's really important to keep it up to date. And we work at that. I have people that's all they do all day.
Okay. That was just, it's a massive undertaking, John. I think one, to run it, two, to keep it up to date. I think it's a wonderful service. I think it's great that we have this in Ontario. I know it's actually North American wide. If having looked at it, it's quite a task.
And it's United Way Canada got the license in 2005 from the Canadian Radio and Television Commission to have the rights to the 211, and then they got organizations to start doing this. The one thing, I have a small favor to ask of you and your listeners, Peter. I'd ask that you be champions of 211.
Amen.
So tell people about it. Just tell people about it.
That's what I'm doing. I got you here.
Exactly right. You've already done your part.
I've already done my part.
But the listeners, tell people about 211 and try it. And the other thing is, just so you know, is that we have a very, very rigorous complaints process. So we try to do our best all the time, but we're not perfect. So if somebody doesn't have the perfect experience, call. Because what will happen is there's a form, it goes to the service manager. We listen to the call to see what was done right or wrong. We use it as education. We call back the person that's raised the concern. So people should know that, don't be shy, because I like that. I want the constructive feedback. As you know, Peter, you can't get better unless you get feedback about how you're doing. If you just think everything's okay every day, you're not going to get any better. So just as I said, so that's how we can make 211 better together, by having that kind of dialogue with people. So when you don't know where to turn, Peter, call 211.
I usually call John Hoyles. John, it's been great having you. Is there anything you want to say that you haven't said, or anything, just to wrap it up? Anything else? I want to give you that opportunity.
No, I just want to say something, Peter, which you may edit out of this, but your parishioners are very fortunate to have you as their pastor, Peter. You've been a wonderful friend, and you're a wonderful person. And I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share it with the information about 211.
Thank you, John. Thank you. God bless you. And everyone, thank you if you've tuned into this. And as John has said already, spread the news about 211 Ontario. I think it's a very good service. It's a nonprofit. It's not a government agency. And so we need to be thankful that there are people who care and to want to help those who need help. And often from time to time, we all need help. Thank you, John. And
Thank you,
God
Peter.
bless.
Take
Thank you,
care.
everyone. Take care.